change a diamond blade on an MK saw. We don't have the blade installed right now. I'm going to walk over how we do it. So first things first is you want to bring the whole carriage closer to you and lock the carriage so that it's not moving when you're adjusting the blade and tightening the blade. There's a big nut back here. This nut allows you to move this up and down. So I loosen this and I lift this up. On the other side, there's another little wing nut here that tightens it up right here, so that if this is too tight, you can loosen up that wing nut, but make sure you tighten it after the blade is on. Now, what holds the blade are these two flanges. This is the inner flange, this is the outer flange, and this nut on the end. This nut is a left-hand nut, meaning lefty tighty, righty loosey, the opposite of what most nuts are. Whenever you're taking the blade off, you need to take off the inner flange, this flange here, the inner flange, clean this area and lubricate it. Give it some lubricant, then you can put the inner flange back in. It's a tight fit. Slide it back on. Now we're ready for the blade. One thing you'll notice on most blades is the arbor on a 10-inch blade is larger than our actual arbor. So the blade's just going to bounce around here. That's no good. Most blades come with these little brass rings. So this brass ring fits in here perfectly into this space here. And we get it in there as much as we can. I kind of like to bonk it in a little bit. And now you'll see the blade is on there tight. Actually, let's just slide on a bit more. There it is. Really tight on there. Very, very tight fit. Now one thing you'll notice is the direction on the blade. See how the direction is pointing that way? But look at this. This arrow is pointing this way. What does that mean? The blade is actually on backwards. The arrow on the guard has to match the arrow on the blade. So I'm going to slide the blade back off and I will flip it around. So now I know that the arrows match. And I put this blade back on. Such a tight fit. It's a little difficult to get on. Now I put the outer flange on. And I've got the nut. When I put the outer flange on, I generally want it to be as centered as possible. So this is centered here. And again, remember this is a left-hand nut, so the opposite you would do with most nuts. To tighten it, we have two tools. We have a special wrench provided by MK, and then we've got an Allen wrench also provided by NK. We're going to actually secure these to the table so that they never get lost. Wrench goes on here, Allen wrench goes in the middle, and left to tighten. You don't want to over tighten anything here. That's pretty good right there. You don't want to over tighten it, you don't want to cross thread anything. Now I'm going to set these down, put this in, and I'm going to tighten both of the nuts. Remember there's two nuts, one in the front, one in the back. This nut tightens the guard, and then there's another wing nut here that tightens the back of the guard. Just hand tight, but really tight so that we know the guard's not going anywhere. Now I can loosen this, and I'm ready to cut. That's all. You have to adjust the blade height. If we are using plywood to support the tile or slab, we don't want to actually cut through the plywood. Plywood is bad for this blade, and this blade will basically just burn through the plywood. It won't actually do anything. So if we have a piece of stone on top of this, we want it to cut through the stone but not through the plywood, so we need to adjust the height of the blade. There's a knob back here. This loosens the blade, and you see how there's springs, it immediately wants to pull up. This will allow the blade to move up and down. So this saw can be used with smaller blades, and that's why it goes down so low. But really, we want it to come down to the we want it to come down to the plywood, but not through the plywood. So we've got this loose. I push it down, and I push it down pretty hard so that I'm certain that it's touching the plywood, and then I tighten it. And it just needs to be hand tightened. You don't have to go crazy with it. Just give it a good tightening. And now we know that it's perfectly at the height of the plywood. No higher, no lower. It's going to cut completely through the granite, but it will not cut through the plywood. And that's it. On this machine, there's a few points of lubrication, first of all. This rail needs to be lubricated weekly. You can just spray some WD-40 on here, some spray lubricant. These springs need to be lubricated back here. Again, we just spray a little bit back here. And then the cutting head, which is behind the blade, also needs to be lubricated. When I show you how to take the blade off, I show you behind the flange it needs to be lubricated. It doesn't hurt to spray some lubricant up here behind the blade so that it goes into the cutting head. Once everything's lubricated, we have to keep the pump and water supply clean. These bolts right here, they hold the top of the table on. These bolts come off. You can see there's 2 bolts here, and then bolts here and here. These top parts of the table will come off, and that'll allow you to clean inside of the table. Say about once a month it's going to get really dirty in there. We need to completely clean it out so that our water supply is clean. Our pump is back here. This is our water pump. It's kind of jammed in there, but if we were to take this table off, we'd be able to take the pump out. We'd have to clean the pump once in a while. The way we clean the pump is we flow clean water through it. So you'd be able to take this pump out of here, put it into a bucket of clean water, and wait, turn the pump on, wait until the pump is flowing through the completely clean water. Once completely clean water is coming out of the head of the pump, then you know the pump has been fully cleaned. When you're doing maintenance, always, always, always make sure that the unit is unplugged out of the electricity. You do not want the motor to start or to get electrocuted while you're messing around with water or lubricant. Unplug, then maintain. Over some of the fancier functions of the MK saw. One of the things that it comes with is this tool here that allows us to cut at angles. So suppose I wanted to cut this 12 by 12 tile at a 45-degree angle. First thing that I do is I eyeball it here, so at about 45 degrees there. Then I set up the tool. The tool's got 3 knobs. This knob secures it to the rail. This knob here allows this distance piece to move. And then this knob adjusts the angle, and you can see the angles are written on there. So this one we want to cut at a 45, so I'm going to put it onto the rail. I'm going to tighten it onto the rail here first. I'm going to set this at exactly 45 degrees. Tighten that up. And let's say I wanted to cut it right at the point, so I'm going to eyeball this and make sure that the blade starts right at the point. And right now it's about a 1/4 inch off center, so I'm going to move this back about a 1/4 inch. Tighten that up. I'm going to push this really snug up against this to make sure our angle is accurate. And now I have a perfect 45-degree angle cut here. Alright, so that's one tool. The other tool is the straight edge tool. Now, suppose I wanted to cut several tiles to the exact same size. Let me take this off real quick. If you want to cut several tiles to the exact same size, this is like a stopper. This clamps onto this rail here. You gotta loosen it quite a bit for it to open up there. Very snug. Tighten that on, and now I can cut 10 of these tiles at exactly this dimension. You just gotta make sure that everything's really snug up against there. Now, just cut, take this tile out, put another tile in. Now the last function is the miter functionality here. If you wanted to cut this tile at a 45-degree angle this way, there are 2 knobs, one here. Loosen this knob. There's an identical knob on the back side that I've already loosened. Put your arm here, push, And now this is at a 45-degree angle. You now tighten both knobs. And again, this will cut the same way at a 45-degree angle that way. Just put it back into place, loosen up the knob again, and I'm going to put my arm right here. Try not to touch the rail because this is typically lubricated. And I pull back into place, tighten it up again, front and back, and now we're back at 90-degree angle cuts. And that's it.